For our Tuesday Talks series with another amazing trailblazing woman in business, Yvonne Smyth. Yvonne, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today with me. As you know, myself and Gaye Moore are doing these Tuesday Talks series every Tuesday on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we're talking to the real humans behind their business, their why, their values, and basically the challenges and the resistance that shows up and how we get over them. Yvonne, happy Tuesday to you. An absolute pleasure, as I said, to have you here. Can you introduce yourself basically and give us a bit of insight into who you are and what you do?
Will do. Good morning, Pauline. Lovely to be here. This has taken us a little while to set up, but we got here in the end.
We showed up, we're here.
Showed up, we're here. Yeah, I have been sort of in the coaching, mentoring, training, facilitation, consulting sort of space for the last 5 years or so, having previously been managing director at Gaye Resort and Spa up here in County Antrim. And, you know, I left that primarily really because the job was getting too big. I had 2 young kids and it just wasn't all, there was too many balls being juggled, and it was a case of, you know, I need to do something else. So I've been in this space for about 5 years, but what I'm actually doing now is I'm expanding my sort of coaching practice, the coaching element, into parent coaching as well. And really the rationale for that, or where that's come from, is really a little bit like yourself, Pauline. I was listening to your talk with my lovely sister Gaye the other day, and you were saying how
Gaye's sister, by the way.
And you were saying about how, you know, your story is wrapped up in what you do now, because you pivoted and now you're helping people to pivot. Well, I was that sort of frazzled, overwhelmed yet underwhelmed parent who was tearing my hair out a few years ago, finding that I felt like I was constantly just marshalling my children to get into the bath, get out of the bath, get into bed, get out of bed, eat your dinner, you know, all of the things. And I felt that there was a constant sort of power struggle going on, and I wasn't enjoying. I found that the joy of parenting had completely been sucked out of it for me, and I didn't like how I was showing up as irritated, frustrated, impatient. I didn't like the experience my children were getting of me. I didn't think the experience I was getting of them was great, and I felt really stuck. And really, it's from there that I have got to here, you know, with a lot of stuff in the middle, which is really, I sent myself back to parenting school, which is, I have done courses in positive discipline, in conscious parenting. I have basically educated myself through courses, through books, podcasts, through engaging with people who operate in the sort of parent coaching space. And I have actually transformed the dynamic with my children, you know, as a result of what I have learned. I really have. And I now have all the joy of parenting. Don't get me wrong, there are still some power struggles. Nothing is perfect. And of course, but I have got to a really different place. And I want to help other parents to do the same, because what I have learned and the changes I have seen and the just complete alteration in the dynamic where oppositional behavior has melted away, and the relationship that I have built with my kids is just fills my heart, you know, from the bottom to the top, that I want to help other parents, you know, do the same thing.
And it is a real struggle, isn't it, for parents out there? Like, I mean, you know, you know, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, you know, you're working harder, in my opinion. Sometimes if you're a stay-at-home parent and, you know, then you have a partner that's out working, be that the husband or the wife, or if the two of you are out working, and like that, as you say, you're like juggling like all these balls, and then all of a sudden they start to drop and you start to get overwhelmed and panic. And I know, like, from years ago, you know, I had my son very young. I was 20 when I had him, but then I went on and, you know, I went on, did my studies, and I was working in the city, and I lost a lot of time with him. And, you know, even though I was very lucky to have help, and I lived at home at the time before we moved out, it still was overwhelming. And, you know, I was privileged in that regard. And then I see, you know, so many other people and friends and, you know, people that I work with as well. And I'm like, kudos to you. Like, it's not easy, and it's very easy to drop the balls and to go into overwhelm. But as you say, I think working on being so self-compassionate in that regard is really key, isn't it? Because you know, you can't be self-compassionate to yourself, you can get derailed. And look, I've done it. I've not been compassionate to my child as well, because I've snapped when he was younger, because I was under that pressure, and I was, you know, irritable and anxious and stressed, and you know, I didn't create the space. And it's something that we can get very, you know, I would have bet myself up about it, but you know, you have to acknowledge really what's going on. And I'm sure, as I said, you see with the types of people that you're working with, you've been through it, so you can relate, as you say there, you know, as I hear you saying there, you were just marshalling your kids around into
it just felt like a constant merry-go-round, and it felt like, you know, they don't want to do the things I want them to do. I'm getting irritated and frustrated. They then want to do the things even less. And you know, Pauline, what I realized was that, you know, this whole thing of we're just expected to know how to be parents, I'm calling BS on that, to be honest. Because, you know, if you went and got a job tomorrow, it wouldn't matter where it was. If I went to Marks and Spencer's tomorrow and got a job behind the tills, I would get training. I would get ongoing supervision and support and training. But yet we're just expected to know how to be a great parent. And you know, we don't necessarily, you know, it's actually the most complex role that we will ever play in our lives, because you're required to be, you know, a nurse, a nutritionist, a psychologist, an educator, a leader, a motivator. Like, you have to play so many roles that really, you know, this expectation that we have of ourselves, almost, that because we've grown this thing inside of us, we know what to do with it when it comes out. No,
we should know what to do.
Yeah, no, and you know what? That's why, as I say, I sent myself back to parenting school, and I found that no, I didn't know, and I learned skills, and I learned insights, and I learned wisdom. And you know, a lot of it was, and you will relate to this, Pauline, is, you know, a lot of it was putting the spotlight back on me first, as in, why am I getting triggered in these situations? What part of my conditioning am I bringing to the table here? What part of my old story, you know, what old thought patterns and old behavior patterns am I bringing here that are causing me to get triggered into this irritation, frustration, or whatever, because my kid does X? And a lot of it is actually about looking at yourself, you know.
What do you see are the main benefits that people actually take away from creating that space to work with you and actually bring themselves back to parenting school effectively?
I think the main thing that people take away is a realization that the most important thing is relationship, and that we tend to look for, and I was looking for this myself when I was in that space of not knowing what to do with my children's behavior. We think we want to look for magic fairy dust to throw on the situation so the behavior changes, but actually that's not where you need to focus your attention. Where you need to focus your attention is the relationship that you're building with your children. And if you build a relationship with your children that takes out the hierarchy, not I'm the parent up here and you're the child down there, it's where you are building a relationship where you are co-creating your life experiences together, where you are partnering with each other in understanding each other, in having a relationship that's built on respect, on trust, on empowerment, on partnering, like I said. If you do that, the oppositional behavior melts away naturally. And the reason for that is very simple, is that if you take the word discipline, the origin of the word discipline is to teach, first of all. But also, if you think of the word disciple, a disciple is a willing follower. Okay, so when your child has a brilliant relationship with you, and they, you know, you're so in tune with each other, they know that you understand them, you validate them, you have empathy for all of their feelings, for everything that comes up for them, they are so much more willing to do whatever you ask of them. If you ask them to do X, because of the relationship they say, yeah, okay. It just melts the whole thing away, this whole oppositionality, you know. So that's what I help people do. And it's actually a much more joyful place to be. And it doesn't mean, God, Pauline, that you have to spend every minute of every day with your children. It's not about the quantity of time, because people can say, how can I possibly do that? I work all day and I pick my kids up at 6 o'clock, and then we have 2 hours or 3 hours of homework and dinner and bed. But that's all it need. That's all you need. And it doesn't mean,
yeah, it's the quality of the time.
yes, it's the quality, and it's how you communicate with them
Yeah.
in the time that you are with them. And it's very, do you know, one of the most important things, Pauline, and this opens up the space immediately with your child, is you validate how they're feeling. It doesn't matter whether actually you think, oh my word, they're overreacting to something, or yeah, they're being silly. No, there's none of that. They're not being silly. If your child is disappointed and upset or angry or frustrated or whatever about whatever it is, you validate that. You hold a space for them to feel however they are feeling. And that in itself often just melts it away. Because people ask me, how do I deal with my child throwing a tantrum? And I go, okay, the first thing you do is take the word tantrum out of the equation, because that sounds like it's an intentional thing that they're doing. Your child has been overwhelmed with emotion. For whatever reason, they haven't decided that this is what they're going to do. This is the only way they know how to cope with all of the feeling that's inside of them. And you hold space for that, and you validate that they are disappointed or hurt or upset or whatever it is. And that in itself, just the child thinks, oh my word, you understand me. You know, you're there for me. And it's like, I use this example that if I go to a restaurant and I order wine, I really like a nice wine glass. Okay. But I have enough self-regulation that if one of those stupid, horrible pub wine glasses appears, that I don't throw a tantrum about it, okay? But my child might, if they want the blue cup and I give them the green cup, they may not have enough brain development yet to regulate that disappointment at them giving them the wrong cup. Doesn't mean that they're stupid or they're silly or they're being unreasonable. It's just that they have their brain and their capability to self-regulate hasn't developed enough in order to allow them to do that. And actually, the biggest way that we teach our children to regulate their emotions is by regulating our own.
Oh yeah,
when they have an emotional meltdown, we don't have one. You know, that we don't get angry and irritated and frustrated with them. So
that was something that I would have been very aware of when I was ill and anxious and stressed in the past myself. I tried to regulate, you know, my freaking out. Now, don't get me wrong, my child did suffer at the cost of it sometimes, but I was kind of very aware of how to regulate, you know, my emotions and how they would affect him. So I always tried to get out of the way, you know, or go somewhere else if it was about to kick off. My poor husband got it done. But it is, you are so correct. And it's even in the work I see and do now, learning how to regulate your own emotions, which is EQ, effectively emotions.
Yes.
At the end of it, there's a lot of that work. It feeds into how we shape our environments and our reality for ourselves and our children going forward. And, you know, it really is a precursor to you know, having calm and confident children who are comfortable relaying their emotional state of mind, which is a big problem now, as you see in young children and teenagers, you know, with social media and stuff or whatever. And it does start with parenting. Like it has to. I'm a big advocate of parenting in a way. I'm no expert by no means like yourself, but you know, just from my own coaching background and life experience, and you know, being a bit of a troublesome teenager myself, you know, it's very, very important to do that work. You know, just when I heard you say there, I could talk to you all day about this because I'm fascinated.
Yeah, me too.
I really am. Like, being a parent is, you know, I'm grateful I'm a parent, you know, and it's just one of the most rewarding experiences ever. But you in your business yourself personally, just back to yourself and your business, And again, the struggles and challenges that we kind of face and how we regulate, how we deal with them. Any specific challenges or struggles that you face in your business? I mean, how many years are you in business now doing this? You said 5 years in the business.
5,
And this
yeah. But as I say, 5 years in mostly working in the corporate space, to be honest. So, you know, the 5 years have been, you know, training and coaching and mentoring in sort of leadership and employee engagement and customer experience and doing executive coaching and so on as well. So my biggest challenge now, Pauline, is a pivot. You know, I'm pivoting into a different place with my business, you know, in terms of parent coaching. So that's not what I'm known for at the moment. What I'm known for is working in the corporate space. So that's where my challenge is at the minute, is about growing my credibility in that space and growing a business that actually I don't really see anyone else around me doing. I don't see any parent coaches. Okay, it's not a common thing really here yet. I mean, it's very common in America and Canada and so on. You know, like most sort of the coaching sort of niches, they tend to start somewhere else and move over here. So it's quite new. You know, it's quite a new sort of.
I think it's needed. Okay, being brutally honest, I think sometimes the resistance that shows up is that people don't want. People think that people might be telling them how to rear their kids.
Yes.
So they close themselves off straight away. Yeah. And I think it's very visible from talking to you there and relaying your passion and why behind your business and how you can relate to the challenges parents face. That's not what you're going to do.
No.
You know, so people need to explore that space and allow themselves to try it and show up open-minded and see how they can actually just, you know, get the balls kind of juggling in the right direction and, you know, without dropping them and feeling like that, you know, I have to kick myself around and then I take that out on my children and my partners and my relationships. So I think there is a bit of resistance around that. Do you feel around, you know, people might, because I see it even in coaching, you know, just coaching adults, you know, now I trained as a strength-based youth coach years ago. And I was on a board for dealing with youths who were kind of, you know, just a bit of difficulties, bit of home background environment, but it started with the parents, you know, and I could get kicked around for saying this now. The kids were brilliant. Okay, kids are brilliant. No, I didn't do very much work on it because I found it very challenging to kind of get some of the messages true from a value-based perspective from the parenting end. But I think you're right in everything you say. Like, kids are very adaptable to change, and the kids are very open-minded to change, and they will respond, but the parents have to start in a you know, responsive mode as well. And again,
and I think also, Pauline, you know, like I focus sort of there on, you know, bringing back the joy of parenting and having that relationship and all of that. But there's actually a bigger, more critical question or sort of point here that's really relevant, is that if we don't parent well, we run, it's risk. You know, one of my things is not just about, okay, it's the joy of parenting, it's helping me and it's helping create more harmony, but I want to raise children who are emotionally healthy. Okay, I want to raise children who have positive emotional and mental health, who have resilience, and who are critical thinkers. And then as adults, that is likely to show up in positive mental health and not succumbing to peer pressure. Because I will tell you, Pauline, peer pressure scares the life out of me, particularly in this day and age of social media. You know, when I was a child, for example, I was bullied, but I couldn't be bullied beyond 3 o'clock in the afternoon because nobody could get into my house.
Yeah, it's a really valid point.
There was no opportunity, you know, for peers to get at me beyond 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whatever time it was when I was in my home. So, you know, there's a more critical message here. As I say, I want to raise kids who are strong in themselves, who are mentally well, who are resilient, and who also have such a relationship with me that even when they are teenagers and they're not under my roof as often anymore, that I still have influence over them rather than control. This business of trying to control children is not the answer. We can control children all the time with rewards and threats and punishments and timeouts and removing their privileges and taking their phones off them when they're teenagers and everything. But once they step outside of our door, if we don't have a great relationship with them, we lose our influence. So I want that when my children are not with me in the future, that my relationship and my guidance and who we have become together still influences them beyond my front door. And also that when they get into trouble, they come to me. They're not afraid that I am going to roar at them, scream at them, tell them that they're useless, that no, they can bring anything to me. It doesn't matter how awful it may seem. And, that's not how I grew up. And that's not how most of us grew up. The parenting paradigm from the last generation is, I'm the parent, you're the child. You sort of do what I've decided is done. But, I wouldn't have gone to my parents, and don't get me wrong, I love my parents dearly. As you know, Dad passed away last year, and God absolutely loved them and was absolutely sure of their love for me. But I wouldn't have gone to them if I got into trouble doing something. That's just not the relationship I had with them, not the type of relationship. And I want to change that, and I want parents to change that so that they have more influence in a nice way, because of a relationship.
Yeah, it's really important. And I do kind of pride ourselves here as parents that our son, who's 22, will be 23 in May, can come to us and he can say what's on his mind. And that's because I'm able to do that now, and so is my husband, and he's like that. It is his environment. He knows that he can come and he can share what is happening, and we have to listen. And he actually reprimands me because sometimes I could be so caught up in the business, and I could be here with the laptop, and he'll come in and I'll sense his energy that he'll want to tell me something, and I really have to regulate myself around that, because he will literally call me out for working and not listening to him, and I'm like, I'm so glad he did that. And then I'll just close everything down and I'm like, listen, it's the most valuable gift, isn't it? To just listen to him and hold that space, as you say. And what can I say? Effective parenting effectively equals emotionally fit and healthy young kids, teenagers, adults. Boundaries, teaching them how to set boundaries, teaching them how to value align their lives should be taught in school.
Completely.
Values and boundaries should be a subject on the curriculum.
Yes.
Really feels that. Because it's just the foundation of a lot of stuff. And I didn't get to do this work on myself till my mid-30s, late 30s. And I think to myself, how valuable that would have been had I started that in a place when I was younger. It's so badly needed, So I think the work that you're doing is phenomenal. I could talk to you all day about it. I really could, because I'm fascinated with it. And I really do feel there's a gap for it. And as I said, whatever struggles or challenges you may face around it, I'm sure you'll find your way forward with them. You have an event coming up, don't you, soon around this? Could you give us some details on that?
Yes, I have an event coming up on the 9th of February, so a week from this weekend, and it is emotional well-being for parent and child. Now, it's an event for parents, but it's about helping them to learn insights, knowledge, tips, techniques, and so on around supporting their own emotional well-being and their children's emotional well-being. It's here in Ballymena. It is the afternoon of the 9th of February. It's 2 to 5 p.m. And there's 4 sort of speakers. I'm speaking, and then I also have a nutritionist who is talking about the link between what and how we eat and our emotional well-being, both for parents and for kids. So that whole gut health thing we were talking about earlier, Pauline, and also the link between sort of, blood sugar, particularly for kids, balancing their blood sugar. I also have a yoga teacher speaking, and she's talking about mindfulness and yoga and its sort of impact both for parents and kids in emotional well-being. And she's going to be leading us through a couple of sort of mindfulness activities that people can take away with them to do with their kids at home as well. And then I have a lady who is an essential oils advocate, and she has 2 young boys, actually similar age to mine, and she's talking about how she uses essential oils to help balance her emotional well-being and that of her kids as well. So, and we're having some juices and some healthy-ish snacks, and it's going to be a really good afternoon. Really looking forward to it.
Brilliant, brilliant. It sounds, phenomenal and full of valuable information that people, I'm sure, will walk away with and be able to actually practically implement in our lives. That's the thing, isn't it? Being practically able to implement stuff that, works for us and our lifestyle and our kids, most importantly. Yvonne, do you have a website as well? I know you're on LinkedIn under Yvonne Smyth. Do you have a website as well?
I haven't got a website at the minute. I have an old website that needs to be binned, to be honest, and updated. So I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook as @thisparenting_adventure. That's sort of where I'm most active. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, you know where to find Yvonne. As I said, if you are in your career, your life in general, stay-at-home parent, whatever you are, and you're struggling with, juggling the balls and some are dropping, please do get in touch with Yvonne and maybe check out her event as well. Yvonne, an absolute pleasure talking to you. Fascinated. I could talk about it all day. I'm big into parenting and emotional intelligence for kids. So listen, thank you very much, and we'll keep an eye on your journey as well in business, and we'll certainly learn from your insights around parenting. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Pauline. All the best.